in an increasingly interconnected world, and although the United States has long been considered a melting pot of ethnicity, our next guests believe many people don't have a global mindset, a skill they say is critical in the 21st century. That's why Stacie and Mike Berdan wrote the book, Raising Global Children. They have traveled to 4 continents and 23 countries with their 2 daughters, Betty and Connie, who are also here today. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to start with you parents. Stacie, Mike, did you grow up this way? Did you travel the world?
Well, I actually would say I grew up in a typical American household in South Florida. I was one of 8 kids. My father was a commercial airline pilot, so we did travel a lot, both domestically and some internationally. And that helped a little bit. My parents were first-generation immigrants. Their parents came from Poland, and so even though they spoke both English and Polish, they did not teach it to us because they really wanted us to acclimate here. So for me, it was looking at a National Geographic when I was young and seeing the splendor and the beauty of India and the Taj Mahal and the women in those gorgeous, colorful saris. There was a turning point for me that said there was a lot of the world out there that I hadn't seen or been exposed to, and kind of launched me on my path.
And Mike, tell me about the philosophy of raising global children.
Well, our theory is that you really need to go out there and experience the world in as many different ways as possible. And it used to be just a kind of a cultural immersion, good for the soul, learning about Western culture, but it really has gotten to be the point where it is a necessity in today's economy. You really have to be able to work across cultures, work with people from other cultures, and be ready to go overseas and live in their country and live their lifestyle.
Sure. Well, I have to ask you, with all of your traveling, do you speak other languages?
I spoke French, still do speak it. I've taken it for 20 years or something. I also picked up Spanish and a little Swedish.
All right. And Stacie, when you travel, you say you're not tourists, you're more like adventurers. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's a way to travel. I mean, seeing the world, and you can go and you can see the sights, you can tick off the sights, and you can say, well, I've been here, I've been there, and done that. But what we do is actually we try to really immerse ourselves in the culture. We try to travel like locals. We take local transportation. We stay at local inns. We eat in local restaurants. We do the best we can to get by with the languages. If we know some, thankfully these 3 have some skills. And if we don't, we try. We try to pick up a little bit, but we try to have those people-to-people kind of contacts with other people so that we actually begin to experience these other cultures in a way beyond just being tourists. And you know, you never really can experience it unless you live there. However, we do the best job we can kind of immersing ourselves.
It changes the whole experience when you do it that way, right?
Absolutely.
And girls, you've done a lot at the age of 14. Talk to me about some standout trips.
When we were 4, we went to Guatemala, and I remember climbing up in the morning to go see a sunrise up a pyramid.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And what do you think?
Well, just recently, in April, we just came back from our 10-day stay in the same town of San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. And that was really fun because we got to meet a bunch of the same people more than one time, so we really got to know them more than we would if we were just tourists.
And I'm sure you worked on your language skills while you were there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So let me ask you, do you see a difference as the way you guys were raised compared to some of your classmates?
Yes. Well, I think we recognize that America is not the first nation, and we have expanded it, so we see other cultures and we know them more.
Sure.
And we definitely eat a lot more yummy food.
Yeah, I mean, because you kind of have the taste for it, right?
Yes.
That's great. Mike, let's turn back to you. What advice would you have for parents who think this is a great idea but don't really know how to get started?
Well, the best thing to do, of course, is do your research. We advocate going overseas and immersing yourself in different cultures, but you can do this locally as well. It does not have to cost all that money, the kind of money you would spend to go on a big cruise or something like that. There are lots of cultural opportunities locally. I mean, just right here in Connecticut, we have ethnic communities, so you can go that way. But if you're going to make the big jump to go overseas, do your research, find out the kind of countries that you're really interested in going to, find out the feasibility, and then start planning, and you will eventually find a trip that will work very well for you and your family.
Sure. And Stacie, talk to me about the book. Why did you guys decide to write it?
Well, it's interesting. You know, this is actually my 4th book, and I worked internationally. Mike and I lived in Hong Kong together. And when we were there in Hong Kong, we realized actually that specifically my team, they were just so much better prepared actually to work cross-culturally and to work throughout the region and around the world. And it made me realize when we came back, actually, that there was an opportunity for us. We didn't have our daughters there, but we had them soon after when we came back. And we're global souls, I would say. We actually love the world, and we love foods and museums and cultures and the pursuit of languages. So we decided that when we had Connie and Betty, that we would expose the world to them.
Sure.
And it was very important. So when we wrote this book, actually it was just published last November by ACTFL, the American Council on the Teaching Foreign Languages. The reason we wrote it was actually to help other parents realize and appreciate the importance of developing a global mindset. And so in the book, there are tips, practical advice, but there are lots and lots of stories of other parents and other young people who have done the same.
And we could find it just about anywhere. The name of the book again is Raising Global Children. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your stories.
Thanks for having us.
All right, stay with us. More Connecticut Style after the break. We'll be right back.